Hello, my name is Audrie Gordon, and I'd like to welcome you to day 7 of the Dataverse Advent Calendar. Yesterday, we were able to create a new table. The day before that, we learned all about what tables are and all that they include. The one thing I didn't talk about in either of those 2 days is that we have some very special column types in Dataverse, and I'm going to introduce you to those today. I have 5 to share with you. Let's start with the special column types that are related to files. So these column types can be added to a table, but usually in the case where we use these columns, there's a one-to-one relationship. So for instance, in this screenshot here, you'll notice that I have added a column called contract file. So this is a record in Dataverse that is grabbing the actual contract details for a particular contract. We have the option to add a column to that record that holds the file. Okay? And that way when you click on that file, it'll download to your machine and you can read it. All right. The other option we have under the same column type is images. So again, we're thinking one-to-one. So perhaps in this change request where we are fixing something that was damaged, we might want to actually show an image of the damage. So we might take that image and then attach it to the record. And usually this is again a one-to-one relationship with a large leaning on the column name. So the column name in this case was contract file. It's pretty self-evident. One contract file for each contract. And then finally the photo, last inspection photo. Notice the column name is very clear that this is the last inspection photo. All right, so these are the 2 file types. I'll get to show you these, don't worry. But the thing to remember is that any files that you add in your Dataverse are included in the storage that you get when you install Dataverse, right? And so we'll look at where you can go see how much storage you're using for files, all right? So that's kind of like the first set that are special. The second set has to do with formulas. And we basically have 3 types of formula columns that you can use. The 2 in the front are legacy. They've always been there. And then the last one is in preview. And this is where we're going to start lighting up formula FX in the context of Dataverse. So that one's going to do a lot, but let's get started with what was already legacy. So the calculated column just does just that. It calculates things. And you can set a condition. So I have a column here called set first review. And what this is like every time we onboard a design engineering agency, 7 days after they are accepted into the fold, we have to have a review with them of their design drawings as they are today. And so that always is going to happen 7 days after they are input into the system. And so we can set that as a calculated field so that we know when that is. And that date can therefore trigger some workflow that has to happen. We can even automatically have that workflow create the Teams meeting if it's going to be remote. All right. So basically, the key thing to remember with calculated fields is you have the option to add an if-then statement. In this case, remember on our first day, I showed you that I use the common data model for all my companies that I deal with, for partners, suppliers, and for other things. In this case, my business type is defined to different types of companies again, but this time design company, contracting company, depending on what they're doing as part of our solution. So in this case, I'm looking only at the companies that are classified as design engineering firms, because we don't want anybody else in these meetings that are about drawings at that 7-day point. So that's my condition. Business type equals design engineering. I can have others. The value of this column will be 7 days from the created on days. So this is similar to a date diff. And I will be giving you in the description the list to all the supported calculated functions, add days being one of them. Next, we have a roll-up column. And a roll-up column is really cool because it rolls up data across many different records. So in this case, I have an account or a company, right? And each company gets these change requests. So this is where the company asks for more money because they need to do something different than what we planned originally. So when they submit a request, that is sent to a related table called requests, right? And it's related to the account, but it's a different table. And now what I want to show on my account form is the total amount of cost impacts that we have received to date for that account. And so what I'm going to do is create a roll-up column that rolls up the requests table and looks at the cost impact column in requests and sums that. Okay, so maybe we'll do this one together. And then finally, we have the Formula FX. We did one yesterday. So if you haven't started using Formula FX, get started because you're going to see this feature lighting up everywhere. In the Power App Studio, in Dataverse columns, in other services on the Power Platform. Formula FX is going to be a very powerful glue that kind of brings all these pieces together. All right, so let's go look at this in real life. I'm going to start by showing you where you can see your file capacity. So just go up to the cog as we've done before and do Admin Center. And then once your Admin Center opens, I'm going to click on Resources to expand it. And then I'm going to click on Capacity. And here you'll see your capacity. You have database, file, and log. And so you can see it as a summary across your tenant, or you can see it by specifying which tenant. Now, I am using a tenant that is demo, so it's not like a real tenant. So you won't see any like real statistics here, but go and check this out in your own tenant, and then you'll see the numbers that'll make more sense, right? But you can actually see how much file capacity is being used right here. So I wanted to show you that first for the file columns, all right? So let's go back and just take a peek at the file columns together. I'm going to go to a table I have here called contract that I created at another time. And then I'm going to open up one of these in the contract form. So basically from the Dataverse workspace, I can just hit edit and then select a row and hit edit using form. And this is a way for me to kind of see what it looks like on the form without having to be in it, a full-fledged app. And you can see here, here's that contract file. I've also added one called contract proposal, right? So how did I add these? Let me show you. So from any place in Dataverse workspace, so it could be here, it could be on the column screen, it could just be from here. So you have lots of options, or you can click this little plus sign and then you type your new column name here. And then because I'm looking to make a file column, I will choose the data type of file. And here I have a choice, file or image. Now some of you may say, Audrie, an image is a file. Yes, it is. And you can use file for images as long as you just want to see the file name. If you want to see the image itself, then choose image. And they both work exactly the same way. You saw the files there. Let me show you an example of what images look like. I'm going to go over to the requests table. And in the requests table, I'm just going to click on edit here because there's a particular one that I know has an image added. I think it's called fence repair or fence broken. Here we go, edit with the get it using form. And then you can see here this column called last inspection photo. And so if I add a column that's an image, you will see the image on the form. If you add a column that's a file, you will just see the file name on the form. And when you click on it, it will download it and open it for you. Okay? So keep that in mind. Both are files, but if you want to see it, use image. If you don't want to see it, then use file. And understand that if you choose image and then you upload a file, it won't work because image needs to be a picture. Okay? Normally JPEG or PNG is the best recommendation. All right, so those are the file types. The other thing that we talked about is calculations. So I'll show you a few calculations that I have done here. Let's look at the account table. So every account has those related requests. And what happens is those requests start to add up. And they add up in such a way that we can blow out our budget. So I'd like to show on the account form or the contractor company form the total cost impacts that they have requested to date. So in that case, I'm going to create a roll-up column. And so I think I've already done that. So let's just show it to you. It's called roll-up. And the only reason I created it in advance for you is because the loading of this takes a little minute or two, and then the actual saving and so forth. And so I just figured I'd do it in advance. But it's no different than any other column. You just put a display name, you pick the behavior and the type, and then it'll tell you to save before you can edit. And that's because it has to pop up a window. This is legacy. It'll pop up the window needed to collect your requirements. So in your browser, make sure you enable pop-ups for the powerapps.com sites. All right. That way you won't have any problem popping up this window. Once it pops up, I'll show you the very easy configuration that happens here. Since I want to look at a different table, I had to specify this is for the account table, but this is related to the requests associated. So there would have to be a relationship between request and account. And then finally, the one thing I did was choose the aggregation of sum of cost impact. One thing I will show you here is, I'm just going to make a little edit on this. Notice the sum cost impact. It only gives me the columns that will actually enable a roll up, right? So it won't show me all the columns. And if you make a change here and you don't notice this green checkbox, it won't let you save and close. So notice that there's a horizontal scroll bar and a vertical scroll bar. So if you don't see this checkbox, then scroll over to get it. And then after you check it, you'll be able to save and close. So now, because I have that new column rolling up all my requests, that can also be added to the account form. So I'll go back to the account forms. And I'll go into account. And all I'm going to do is take that roll up column and put it on the form. And I think I did that already. So you just drag and drop it. Don't use the one with the parentheses base. That's for currency calculations. Just use the one that's normal roll up requests. And now you'll have the roll up on the form. Now there is a timer job related to both calculations and roll-ups. So if you open that form and you don't see it calculated, then you'll get a button that says go ahead and refresh the calc, and it'll run that job for you right away. Otherwise, within 12 to 24 hours, the first calculations will be synced. All right, that is it for our special columns. I think we talked about this enough for you to understand. Feel free to put questions in the bottom. We did a formula yesterday. Maybe what I will do before the end of the series is kind of dedicate 15 minutes to Formula FX, because like I said, it's a big deal. So pay attention to the resources below that will link to calculated roll-up, but especially Formula FX, to learn about all the formulas that are available there, because you're going to feel like you're back in Excel. Very simple with IntelliSense. If you want to see us create a formula column, we did that yesterday. Take a peek at yesterday's video. Thank you so much for coming back today, and I'll see you tomorrow for the 8th day of the Dataverse Advent Calendar. Happy holidays!